Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. This is the post-game podcast. Today on the show, we're talking all things Wolves Jazz. The Timberwolves fell to Utah on Friday night, New Year's Eve, in Salt Lake City. And the final score was a 12-point deficit, but it was really not quite that close. The Timberwolves put up a fight. They were actually ahead at the start of the fourth quarter, but the Jazz went on a massive run. We're going to break down what happened, what went right for the still short-handed Timberwolves in this game, and what happened in the fourth quarter as they fell behind and ultimately lost by double digits. It's all coming on the post-game pod. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. I'm also the editor of Dunking with Wolves, the Timberwolves site on the Fansided Network. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Check out prizepicks.com and use promo code NBA or go to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy weekend and happy 2022. Happy New Year. This is the New Year's Eve postgame podcast following the Timberwolves lost the Utah Jazz on the road in Salt Lake City. This is the postgame pod. We're going to talk all about it here on the show today, break down what happened as the Wolves actually led shorthanded in Utah against the current number three seed in the Western Conference, before ultimately falling by double digits. We're going to break it all down, what happened in the fourth quarter especially, but overall, what are the key takeaways from this game? We're going to break it all down here on the show today. Thank you, first of all, for making Locked On Wolves your first listen each and every day. Locked On Wolves is free and available everywhere, of course, including YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio channels. That includes Apple, Google, Spotify, Odyssey, you name it. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On T-Wolves, and my account is at Beecken. That's with two B's, two E's, CKEN. All right, so the Wolves entered Friday night's game, of course, without Karl-Anthony Towns for the fourth consecutive game, without D'Angelo Russell for the third consecutive game, also McKinley Wright still on the health and safety protocols list. The Timberwolves did get back Jared Vanderbilt. They did get back Anthony Edwards for the first time in 2 weeks. So inching closer to full strength, 3 of the 5 starters back in the fold, but Minnesota was forced to start Naz Reid and Malik Beasley instead of Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell. So not Chris Finch's ideal lineup, but we're getting closer. And the Wolves, of course, had a couple of days off here following Tuesday night's disappointing loss, offensive, punchless loss when the Wolves scored just 88 points on Tuesday against the Knicks, and had a couple of nights off. We're able to get a couple of these guys back, but still obviously missing 2 of their 3 stars, 2 of their 3 best players in Towns and Russell, and headed to Utah to face a Utah Jazz team that is the 3rd best team in the West, just a couple of games behind Phoenix and Golden State for the top spot in the conference, and a relatively healthy team. Mike Conley was resting in this game. Joe Ingles was out with a back injury. So not a 100% Utah Jazz team, but yes, Donovan Mitchell, yes, Rudy Gobert. I mean, the Wolves were 12.5-point underdogs entering this game, according to our friends at betonline.ag. So even if that line might have seemed a little bit high, and ultimately a line that the Timberwolves barely covered at the end of the game because of garbage time, by the way, it was still a game that Minnesota was able to put up a fight in. This was early. It was just a really ugly offensive game. Both teams were bad offensively in the first quarter. The defense wasn't that impressive. Teams were just, both sides were just missing open shots. Just generally bad offense. As we moved into the second quarter, the Timberwolves defense began to struggle more and more, and Minnesota they were down by 13 at halftime. The Timberwolves had plenty of second chance opportunities in the first half. That was the story of the first half of this game, was plenty of second chance opportunities. Jared Vanderbilt, among others, were generating second chance opportunities for Minnesota. Nathan Knight did a good job doing that off the bench. Naz Reid early in the first quarter was doing a good job of that. And Minnesota had multiple chances to kind of eat into what was a growing Utah lead, a gradually growing lead. This was 7 points at the end of the first quarter, ultimately 13 at halftime. It wasn't a complete blowout in the first half, but Utah was just kind of incrementally adding on to their lead. And Minnesota had these chances to kind of chip away at it with these second chance opportunities, but they missed wide open 3-point opportunities, put back opportunities at the rim. Greg Monroe missed at the rim. Jaylen Noel was missing wide open 3-point opportunities. Patrick Beverly in the first half looked like he had no legs in his second game back from COVID, missed a couple of threes woefully short, just kind of looked awkward shooting jumpers. And just as a team, I just named a few guys, not singling anybody out. Well, I mean, I am, but it was really as a whole team, they just really struggled in these wide open second chance opportunities, especially from the perimeter, but also in the paint. And Utah was able to build that double digit lead by halftime. Donovan Mitchell was fantastic in the first half, which of course, I mean, he was fantastic throughout. The Timberwolves really struggled with foul trouble. They were in the penalty like midway through the first quarter. There was, I think this might have actually, well, both quarters actually in the first half. I think it was the second quarter where Anthony Edwards didn't realize they were already in the bonus because it was so early, or maybe it was Malik Beasley. Somebody didn't realize the Timberwolves were already in the penalty. The Jazz were in the bonus and committed a take foul like with 5-6 minutes left in the quarter, and the Jazz were already in the bonus. It was miserable, and we'll talk about more about that later. But Utah ended up attempting 41 free throws to the Wolves 22, and the disparity was greater than that prior to garbage time. It was, I think, 41-17 at one point in this game in terms of free throw attempts. And to make matters worse, by the way, Minnesota did not make their free throw tries at the line. But early in this game, that was a big issue in the first half. That's partly what allowed Utah to build a double-digit lead by halftime, was the Timberwolves' propensity to foul, which has, of course, been an issue all season long. But early in this game, it was really bad. In the third quarter, though, the Timberwolves actually outscored Utah by 14 in the third. They were up by 1 going to the fourth quarter. They used a 12-2 run in the middle of the third quarter, pulled it within a bucket, and then by the end of the frame, the Timberwolves actually had the lead by 1 point headed to the fourth quarter. It was a lot of Anthony Edwards. He kind of led the charge in the third, but across the board, the Timberwolves played. Malik Beasley continued to play well. Jaylen Noel hit a couple of shots there when he came into the game midway through the third. And the Timberwolves were up by 1 headed to the fourth. And it wasn't just offense, by the way. As bad as the Timberwolves were defensively in this game, first, second, and fourth quarter, they were really good in the third. They were contesting shots at the rim. They were scrambling. They were covering for each other. They were Xing out on the perimeter. And for the most part, playing really, really solid defense. And then suddenly we hit the fourth quarter. That went away entirely. Utah went on what was ultimately a 22-0 run, which is just insane. The Timberwolves had a 1 point lead a couple of minute and a half or so into the fourth quarter. Utah just went on this massive run and built a 20+ point lead late in the fourth quarter, or really just midway through the fourth quarter. I think it was 21. And in garbage time, Minnesota whittled this thing down to 11, and the final deficit was 12, or maybe they got it down to 10. The final deficit was 12 for Minnesota, but this was a 20-point lead for Utah midway through the fourth before the Timberwolves waved the white flag effectively. And I mean, early fourth quarter, it was all Donovan Mitchell. He was phenomenal scoring. I mean, he was draining difficult three-pointers, step-back threes over Jaden McDaniels. He was taking, if he was guarded, we'll talk more about this here in a minute, but if he was guarded by Malik Beasley, if he was guarded by Jaylen Noel, he was going to the paint. He was drawing fouls. He was making tough baskets in the paint. It didn't really matter. He was turning the corner and getting what he wanted. He had a couple of tough step-back three-pointers in this game too. Donovan Mitchell was just really, really good. He had 39 points on just 21 shots, 6 of 11 outside the arc, which is, far, obviously over 50%, far above his season average from three in terms of shooting percentage. 9 of 10 at the free throw line, just 3 turnovers in the game for Mitchell in 38 minutes. And Utah was able to pull away pretty easily in the fourth. But again, Minnesota led by 1 going to the fourth quarter. This was just the Donovan Mitchell show in the fourth to pull away for Utah. Okay, I want to talk key takeaways from this game. Pull out, if you could take 3 things away from this game and say, okay, here's what happened in Salt Lake City on New Year's Eve. I'm going to give you 3 things to hang your hat on here. Well, I guess not in a positive way necessarily, but 3 things to talk about here regarding the Timberwolves' performance. First, so let's talk about our title sponsors from today's program, and that, of course, is Prize Picks. Timberwolves fans, you've been hearing me tell you about Prize Picks now for months. Have you signed up yet? Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. If you have not checked it out yet, you are missing out. I'm telling you, you're going to love this app for NBA and mixed spot pick'ems. The Christmas Day games were off the charts if you play Prize Picks. It was a ton of fun if you were playing just last Saturday on Christmas Day. And moving into the new year, still, Prize Picks is phenomenal. If you play daily fantasy, this is the way to go. Prize Picks is the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. Prize Picks offers more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offers all the superstar players as well as bench players that only record a handful of minutes each game. You can get any prop you can think of, from points to assists, rebounds, three-pointers made, etc. Any user that deposits and use the promo code NBA will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Again, it's really simple, really easy to remember. Don't forget the promo code NBA. You get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. You just pick 2 to 5 players and an over under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. It's just you versus the projected numbers. Prize Picks allows mixed sport entries. For instance, you could take the over on Karl-Anthony Towns points scored once he returns from health and safety protocols, or Anthony Edwards, for instance, and the under on Kirk Cousins interceptions, or the over on Dalvin Cook yards rushing. Although that's probably, well, I guess he's going to play Sunday, right? For the Vikings, Kirk Cousins isn't, though, so maybe a sore subject. But anyway, you can pick a mixed sport, Timberwolves, Vikings, whatever it may be, and on the exact same entry. Use the award-winning app for Prize Picks on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Prize Picks is safe. It offers fast withdrawals. Go to prizepicks.com today and use the promo code NBA, or go to your App Store and download the app. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. If you're not playing Prize Picks, you honestly don't know what you are missing. All right, we're going to talk key takeaways now from Wolves Jazz. First of all, though, thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen. For your next listen on each and every day, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. Listen to Locked On Now at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or simply just watch it on the Locked On NBA YouTube channel. All right, key takeaways from Wolves Jazz. Number one for me, Anthony Edwards' first game in a couple of weeks here. He hadn't played since I guess the first game he missed was the Lakers game. It was Friday night 2 weeks ago from New Year's Eve. So whatever that was, December like 17th, that nationally televised game against the Lakers. That was the first game that Ant missed. So we're talking over 2 weeks that he missed. And he actually looked pretty good in this game. Defensively, it was a little rough, but offensively, 9 of 21 shooting, fine. We'll take that. 4 of 10 outside the arc, really good. 4 of 5 at the free throw line, 26 points in 32 minutes. He only had 3 rebounds and 2 assists, 2 turnovers. But the biggest issue was he fouled out in 32 minutes. And really, as good as he looked offensively, obviously he was a half step slow defensively and was a little handsy with Mitchell. I mean, it's hard not to be with Donovan Mitchell, right? I mean, Mitchell's so good at drawing fouls and just so good in general across the board. But it was a little handsy, maybe a half step slow. The conditioning may not be quite all the way back. Obviously, he's still a pretty mediocre defender as is anyway, but just wasn't quite himself in this game in general. Offensively, he was good. His shot looked fine. He hit a couple of tough threes. He got hot, in the kind of the middle of the game, second, third quarter. He played really well. And it's hard to blame Ant for this loss. I mean, he led the Wolves with 26 points. Outside of Donovan Mitchell, he was the high scorer in this game, second leading scorer overall. And again, 9 of 21 shooting is fine for a guy like Ant. 26 points and 21 shots, fine. It's just a little slow defensively. But generally, you have to be happy with how he played after having a couple of weeks off. And of course, no Karl-Anthony Towns, no D'Angelo Russell to take the pressure off of him. Early in the game, he was a little bit passive. But as he kind of got comfortable and got into the flow of the game, and maybe that was by design by Chris Finch, was not to put too much on him too early in his first game back from the COVID-19, the health and safety protocols list. This was generally a solid performance for Ant. It's hard to get too worked up about him dropping 26 points in his first game back from the health and safety protocols list. Second takeaway is Malik Beasley had a good game. Talked about this earlier in the week about how Malik obviously needs to perform at a high level for the Wolves to win with no D'Angelo Russell, no Karl-Anthony Towns. He was very good last Thursday in Utah against the Jazz in Salt Lake City just 8 days prior. No Karl-Anthony Towns in that game. D'Lo did play, but Beasley was fantastic. He had, I forget exactly, 32 or 28 points on a bunch of shots. He was really efficient. The Wolves, of course, lost that game as Utah kind of held the Wolves at arm's length throughout. But with no Towns even, Beasley was really good. And then he struggled against Boston, even though the Wolves won on Monday. Was a little better, but still struggled against the Knicks on Tuesday. Had a couple of tough home games. And now back in Utah, he played well again. I don't know if it's the shooting background at Vivint Arena in Salt Lake City or what it was. But a solid performance from Malik. 22 points at 8 of 16 shooting, 50% from the field, 6 of 14 outside the arc, and I mean, eh, a good game from Malik Beasley. 3 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal in 31 minutes. Um, I mean, it's hard to expect much out of him other than just making his threes. And if he shoots 6 of 14 outside the arc, what more do you want from Malik Beasley? He kind of goes how the rest of the team goes. He just has to make his open shots. And that's the thing with Malik Beasley. If the rest of the team's on and he hits open shots, the Wolves are practically unbeatable. And I mean that. I mean, you go back and look at his games where he shoots the lights out, the Wolves generally win over the course of Beasley's now almost 2 calendar years in Minnesota. But if the rest of the team doesn't play well, even if Malik's on, that means they're not really getting much else. Malik Beasley had 22 points. Anthony Edwards had 26. Nobody else scored more than 12, and the Timberwolves gave up 120 on the other end of the floor. So that's the other thing with Malik Beasley is even though he's been a little bit better defensively this year, and by the way, he's the only Timberwolves player to have played in every game to this point this season, the only player in the entire roster that's played in every game. He's actually been much better defensively than we'd seen over the past couple of years. Of course, that wasn't a very high bar to clear. He hasn't been great defensively. He's just been better than awful, which is what he'd been in the past. And in this particular game, he wasn't very good. Now, Donovan Mitchell's a challenge, I guess, to put it really lightly. But Malik wasn't great on defense. It's tough to ask more of him offensively. This loss is not on his shoulders either. Both him and Anthony Edwards did what they needed to do offensively. I mean, they combined to shoot what 17 of 37 from the field and 10 of 24 from three. What more do you want? I mean, that's what you need from them offensively. The Wolves scored 108 points. The defense was just not good enough. And a lot of that falls on the shoulders of both Ant and Malik. Neither of them were great at the point of attack. Neither of them were great in terms of helping each other out or helping out the other Wolves backcourt players or fighting through screens, any of that stuff. Just just kind of a lackadaisical defensive effort. Combined, they had one steal in 63 combined minutes. Just not what you want out of your top two backcourt players. And really, I mean, I guess technically Ant started at the three because Patrick Beverly and Beasley were in the backcourt, but of your two of your three wings or two of your three guards, um, not what you need defensively. And Pat Bev was a little better than those guys were, as he always is defensively. But you need more out of Ant. You need more out of Malik Beasley defensively. But the offense was fine. And really, outside of a couple of missed open threes off of second chance opportunities, hard to complain about Beasley's night offensively. Now, my so first takeaway is Ant looked fine, step slow defensively, but fine on offense. Beasley, kind of the same thing. Of course, Ant's been out for a couple of weeks. And Bees was very good offensively, but bad defensively. And those guys, can't blame them for this loss. Now, my third takeaway is overall, the defense was just bad. Malik Beasley, Anthony Edwards, Jaylen Noel, Jordan McLaughlin, his limited playing time in this game, really just kind of lack of resistance in terms of point of attack defense. Really disappointing that Minnesota couldn't put up a little bit more fight on defense, especially with no Mike Conley. I mean, the Jazz started Trent Forrest in the backcourt alongside Donovan Mitchell, and Minnesota just couldn't. Donovan Mitchell was the person the Wolves needed to key their defense in on, and he dropped 39 on 21 shots, only had 3 turnovers in this game, 5 assists, got what he wanted throughout the night, 6 of 11 outside the arc, got to the free throw line 10 times. And curiously, by the way, Josh Okogie did not see the floor at all for the Timberwolves. He's healthy. He played just, I think, 5 minutes against the Knicks, a little more than that on Monday against the Celtics, but and he actually started on Monday against Boston for obviously the Wolves had like 7 guys still out for health and safety protocols on Monday. But in a game against Donovan Mitchell, you got to think Josh Okogie gets a few more minutes. And I generally don't question Chris Finch's rotation decisions, but when they really were struggling to contain on the perimeter, it's curious that Josh Okogie did not get the opportunity to guard Donovan Mitchell. He's done a pretty good job in the past against him. And also Taurean Prince, who I think is generally a little bit overrated defensively, but at worst, he's an average defender. Not that he would be guarding Mitchell one-on-one necessarily, but he's a little bit more switchable than some of the other guys the Wolves were trotting out there. And Taurean Prince didn't play at all. So the only 2 Wolves players to not see the court in this game were Prince and Okogie. And Jordan McLaughlin struggled point of attack. Jaden McDaniels was okay. Patrick Beverly was okay. But Beasley, Noel, Edwards all struggled with their point of attack defense. And the Wolves just could not contain Donovan Mitchell, which again is a really difficult task. but he was the only guy. I mean, like Royce O'Neal played 32 minutes and didn't attempt a single shot in this game. So Royce O'Neal was not going to hurt you. Trent Forrest was not going to hurt you. These guys combined to play 53 minutes and combined attempted 3 shots in this game. It was Donovan Mitchell off the bench. It was Jordan Clarkson, who of course is very dynamic and always seems to play well against the Wolves, no matter how bad his season has been. I just the Wolves were just unable to contain primarily Mitchell, but also Clarkson with the ball in their hands for Utah, and that was ultimately the downfall. You give up 120 points, you don't really deserve to win, and that's what we saw in Utah on Friday night. Okay, we'll close the show by talking individual studs and duds. That's upcoming next. First, though, let's talk about our friends over at Built Bar. It's now the new year. You're probably listening to this after midnight Central or after midnight, I guess, wherever you are. And Happy New Year. By the way, happy 2022. It is now the new year. That means New Year's resolutions. If yours happens to be about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure that you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar. Built Bar makes it easier to stick to your resolution because it tastes so good you'll want to eat it. Unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or waxy or taste like a chemical spill, you want to eat healthy, but it just gets so boring. By like week 3, you might be thinking this is not worth it. Where's the chocolate? Well, let me tell you what. Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Most Built Bars contain just 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, and just 4 net carbs, but they also have 17 grams of net protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has almost twice that, 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar. So, like, what is that? 8 times the amount of sugar, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Here's an idea for your new year. Go to your all your secret treat stashes at home, in the pantry, at the office, in the car, wherever your secret treat stashes might be. Throw out all the sugary or calorie-filled treats and replace them with Built Bar. So when you're craving a snack or a treat, you can reach for something that's healthy and still tastes incredible. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good and is good for you. That way, when you do enjoy a delicious Built Bar, you can almost count it as a workout. There's so many flavors to choose from coconut almond to peanut butter brownie, raspberry cookies and cream, salted caramel mint brownie, and many, many more. In fact, Built is always coming out with new limited time flavors. So check out built.com often to see what's new. Go to built.com and use our promo code, get 15% off your order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15. That's our promo code LOCK15. You'll get 15% off at built.com. All right, let's talk individual studs from Wolves Jazz on Friday night, New Year's Eve, the final game of 2021. Not too difficult to figure these out. For me, number one stud is Anthony Edwards, 26 points in this game, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 9 of 21 shooting, 4 of 10 outside the arc, 4 or 5 at the line. Again, you'd like to see more rebounds. You'd like to see more assists. You'd like to see him not foul out in just 32 minutes of play. But the 9 of 21 is fine. The 4 of 10 from outside the arc is great. The 4 of 5 at the line is good. You'd like to see him get a couple more free throw attempts, but he tends to not get the whistles like other players do. It's just kind of a thing at this point, and we got to realize that that's a thing until it's not. And generally, this was a good game for Man. Defensively, not great, and that's the caveat here for everybody. But what do you say? The whole team was pretty mediocre at best defensively. So you got to, credit where credit is due. Ant was pretty good offensively. And so we got to recognize that. So he's a stud from this game. Also, Malik Beasley, 50% from the floor, 22 points on 8 of 16 shooting, 6 of 14 on threes. Again, a third straight game with no free throw attempts, not ideal, but fine. When you score 22 on 16 shots, you can handle that. 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal for Malik, just 1 turnover in 31 minutes. Again, also not great defensively, but across the board, the Wolves give up 120 points. You can't pin that on Edwards and Beasley alone. And those were the only 2 guys that really had efficient, effective offensive games for Minnesota. So we can't ding them too much for that. The third stud for me in this game is Jaden McDaniels, 12 points, 5-11 shooting, just 1 of 4 outside the arc. But that means inside the arc, he was 4 of 7. Hit a couple of tough mid-range jumpers, hit a shot in the paint, which we don't see a lot of from him putting the ball on the deck. 6 rebounds in 33 minutes, only 1 turnover, and also only committed 3 personal fouls in this game in 33 minutes. It was a little curious to me that we didn't see a little more of Jared Vanderbilt. I know the Jazz provide some matchup challenges, but Vando played just 22 minutes and was good. I mean, he had 5 points, 7 rebounds, an assist, a steal, 2 blocks. Uh, a little weird that he didn't play a little bit more. Weird that Okogie didn't get more minutes. Jake Layman got some minutes off the bench in the first half, not just the garbage time minutes he played in the first half. I don't know why those minutes don't go to Okogie. I don't know why the Jordan McLaughlin minutes don't go to Okogie. You let Noel run the offense. A little bit weird here tonight on the rotations. Again, not something I typically complain about when it comes to Chris Finch, but I thought it was a little bit shoddy in this game. A dud in this game, I'm going to actually give it to Jaylen Noel. As much as I like him, and if you're a regular listener to the show, you know that I am the biggest Jaylen Noel fan that there is. 10 points, 5 assists, 2 rebounds in 18 minutes. That sounds good until you realize he shot just 4 of 12, 33% from the field, missed all 3 of his three-point attempts, and fouled out in just 18 minutes of play. And it wasn't just the fouls, it was the blow-bys defensively. I mean, the Jazz were practically targeting him defensively, or offensively, I guess, for the Jazz, to just get through Noel because he provides so little resistance defensively most of the time on the ball. And when he was beat, he fouled in this game, or he fouled to keep from getting beat. 6 fouls in 18 minutes is hard to do as a guard, but he managed to do that in this game. He also was just 2 of 4 at the free throw line, missed a pair of freebies. So 10 points on 12 shots, not all that impressive. The 5 assists are nice. And he played some backup point guard in the second half. Jordan McLaughlin saw some actual rotation minutes in the first half, but not a great game from Jaylen Noel, not his finest game. But again, I would have tweaked the rotation if I was Chris Finch in this game. I thought it was a little bit strange. I should also mention, I didn't mention this in key takeaways because I actually don't think the officiating was that bad overall. I mean, if you didn't watch the game, you just looked at the box score and said, the Jazz attempted 41 free throws. The Wolves only attempted 22. That's almost twice as many. It's not great. And sure, there were some calls that absolutely did not go in the Timberwolves' favor. But Utah was the aggressors in this game. Outside of a couple of Ant drives, it really just Ant. I don't know that there were that many fouls that weren't called for the Timberwolves. Karl-Anthony Towns didn't play in this game, so the Wolves didn't have that many post touches in this game. There weren't that many drives to the rim besides Anthony Edwards. It was maybe a little bit skewed towards I didn't feel like the calls were that lopsided. I just feel like Utah maybe got some extra calls, but I don't think the Wolves were necessarily not getting calls at the rim. I think Utah was just more aggressive. And because of that, they got the benefit of the doubt. They attempted 41 free throws. But in addition to that, they made 85% of their free throws. They were 35 of 41, missed only 6 out of 41. The Timberwolves were just 14 of 22. They missed 8 of their free throws in just 22 attempts. They were only 64%, actually under 64% from the free throw line. So that was also an issue here. Minnesota might have won the 3-point battle by just a couple, but they lost the free throw battle. They had 19 less made free throws. Again, it was the attempts and it was also the makes that were an issue for Minnesota in this game. So disappointing in that regard for the Timberwolves. All things considered, impressive. The Timberwolves were ahead headed to the fourth quarter. And then the fourth quarter was a complete and utter collapse. Defensive breakdowns, missing open threes really throughout the game, which has been a consistent theme for this team all season, and especially this week against the Knicks and the Jazz. Disappointing loss. They did cover the spread and were competitive overall in this game. Just a bad, allowing a 22-0 run in the fourth quarter is obviously not how you draw it up. The Wolves will be off on Saturday. They'll be in LA on Sunday to take on the Lakers, followed by the Clippers on Monday. Both very winnable games. Both LA teams are injured, they're bruised, they're battered, they're stumbling. The Wolves hopefully will get Karl-Anthony Towns and or D'Angelo Russell back in the next couple of days. I believe 10 days of health and safety protocols will be Sunday for Towns. So maybe he's not back Sunday. Maybe he's back Monday. Kind of borderline there. Of course, Naz Reid, for instance, was only in protocols for 5 or 6 days. So hard to say exactly. Obviously, a lot of this depends on symptoms, etc. So we'll see what happens here over the weekend. But hopefully, we'll get to see Towns and or Russell on Sunday or Monday. We'll have a post-game pod on Sunday. That will be Monday's show, post-game pod from Sunday's game against the Lakers. So be sure you're following and subscribed and you tune into that. Thank you to those of you that do make Locked On Wolves your first listen each and every day. The show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio channels. If you don't want to see my face, you can listen to just the audio on Apple, Google, Spotify, and of course, the all-new Odyssey app. You can also follow on Twitter at Locked On T-Wolves and at Beecken with 2 B's, 2 E's, CKEN. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy 2022. We'll see you on Sunday night after Wolves Lakers.